Hello and welcome to the Kubernetes podcast from Google. I'm your host, Kaslin Fields.
And I'm Abdel Sigiwa. This episode, Kaslin went to KubeCon and Cloud Native Con North America in Chicago. She spoke to folks on the ground, asked them about their impressions of the conference, and collected a bunch of cool responses.
But first, let's get to the news. Reptar is not just the name of a big green dinosaur from a 90s kids show. It's also the name of a new CPU vulnerability discovered by researchers at Google. This new finding impacts many Intel desktop, mobile, and server CPUs. The vulnerability is related to how CPUs interpret redundant prefixes. In a nutshell, prefixes are special flags that enable altering of the behavior of instruction sets. Normally, CPUs would ignore conflicting or duplicated prefixes, but that's not what this research work revealed. This could be especially problematic in cloud multi-tenant environments where, if exploited on a guest machine, it could cause the host machine to crash, resulting in a denial of service attack. Details about the research are in the show notes.
Spring Boot 3.2 is released. The very popular Java framework for VMware was announced on November 14. The new version comes with a lot of new features. Virtual threads, crack or coordinated restore and checkpoint supports, advanced observability via macro Metrio, JDBC and REST clients, ActiveMQ integration with test containers, Docker Compose support, Kotlin 1.9.0 support, and hot loading of SSL trust materials.
The videos from KubeCon and Cloud Native Con North America 2023 are available on YouTube now. One video we'd like to recommend is Tim Hawkins' keynote from the last day of the event. Tim talked about the success Kubernetes has experienced over the last 10 years and how the conversation around AI risks adding complexity to the project, which could make it less agile and more complex than it needs to be. We left the link in the show notes for the keynote and also for an interview that Tim had with the Register.
The CNCF and Tag Security released a new book, a comprehensive guide dedicated to assessing and understanding the security of open source software projects. The book is a culmination of 5 years of Tag Secure assessments, learning, insights, and collaborations with experts in the field. The book is free. You can find it on GitHub, and we have also a link in the show notes.
The CNCF's report on KubeCon and Cloud Native Con North America 2023 is out now. The event had 13,666 attendees, with 8,972 of those being in person in Chicago. More than half of the attendees were first-timers. The CFP received 1,871 submissions and saw an 11% acceptance rate. Make sure to check out the link in the show notes for more stats about the event. And that's the news. I'm Kaslin Fields with the Kubernetes podcast from Google, and I'm here at KubeCon Cloud Native Con North America 2023 in Chicago. And I am speaking with...
My name is Charlie Zombrano. I'm a fresh grad. I just graduated with my computer science degree. Born and raised in California, first time at any conference.
I am Carly Lamb, and I'm a software engineer attending the conference. I like to say I was serving Java before I was writing it. I've got a bit of a non-traditional background. Was working as a barista. Somebody told me about a boot camp. I got started in tech and haven't looked back since.
Tim Banks. I'm a lead developer advocate with Dell Technologies.
Hey everyone, I'm Kunal, and I work as a development manager. Sibo, I'm a CNCF ambassador, been involved in communities since I can remember, and really excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Justin Garrison. I'm a longtime attendee of KubeCon and a contributor to Kubernetes.
Anand Sego. I'm currently a junior studying computer science at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign.
My name is Arjun Malhotra, and I work at Openly at the moment. We are into housing insurance. And why did I come to KubeCon? How did that happen? Is because of I've been working in Go programming language for the last 3 years. And that's what got me to Kubernetes 2023. I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, and at the moment I'm standing with Kaslin in Chicago.
Hi, my name is Jay Jackson, and I'm a senior engineer for Total CX.
Troy Connor, senior software engineer at Microsoft / maintainer of Porter.
Hi, I'm Rob Koch, and I work as a principal at Slalom as a builder. Slalom Build. So we do MVP for companies. When our clients need assistance, we provide services to them. We do some development. We have a lot of resources. We've been around for a while, so we go in and we help out with maybe a skill that they're lacking. We provide access, we implement different MVPs, and we make clean transition gradually. We take over the hosting and the development.
So I'm Frederick Kautz. I am a co-chair for this KubeCon, the outgoing co-chair, and I am also the Director of Research and Development at Testify Security.
Hi, my name is Destiny O'Connor, and I'm a software developer also. I'm a chair for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Working Group for CNCF.
I'm Shivai Lamba, and I'm a developer relations engineer at Millisearch. It's an open source Rust-based search engine, but I've been a contributor to a number of different CNCF projects. I started my journey with contributing to this project called Meshry, which is a service mesh plane, and mostly to the service mesh community. I was a maintainer and also a long-time contributor over there, but for the past 1.5 years, I've been mainly contributing to cloud-native WebAssembly space, primarily with the WasmEdge project, which is a WebAssembly runtime that's currently incubated into the CNCF, and I've been mainly contributing to a lot of machine learning stuff over there. And I'm super excited to talk more about that in today's podcast.
What were you hoping to get out of KubeCon?
Honestly, just knowledge and networking. So I came here knowing nothing and expecting something, I guess, kind of. So my friend Carly, really good friend of mine, she invited me out, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I knew I had to do something. So I just jumped on in, and I was like, all right, I'm going to figure it out when I get there. My idea was just to meet people and get as much knowledge as I can and as much as I can understand.
Yeah, so, golden rule, you grow up, you hear, hang around with people that you want to be like. So signed up for a conference to really be surrounded by remarkable minds, make connections with really cool people that are doing really cool things.
The value add for KubeCon or any other conference has always been the hallway track, connecting to the people. Talks are great, talks are talks. I can see talks on the internet. If there's anything I learned from the lockdown and the pandemic is that the community, the opportunity we have to bring together a bunch of brilliant and smart people in one place and talk about things is far more valuable to me than any vendor booth or any talk.
I was most hoping to connect with friends and familiar faces that I've known in the community. This isn't my first KubeCon, but it's been a while. It's been a hot minute, so it's really good to have that quality time and connect once again and talk about some future cool things. And yeah, just to be more excited than I was before I got on that plane.
To be quite frank, I've spent 98% of my time in the sponsor showcase, while stopping the booth, doing interviews, just like you, Kaslin. Not as good though. And I was walking around the project pavilion. Always nice to see what's happening over there. What I was hoping to get out of KubeCon is meet new people. Even though it's amazing to meet friends that I see at every conference, and I always look forward to that. But part of the reason I'm also here is to meet new people whom I don't know. And similarly for the after parties, it's always nice to party with your friends and stuff like that. But I'm also looking forward to new people, new friends, connections, business contacts, newses and announcements, and yeah.
I was honored to come to KubeCon on the Dan Cohn Scholarship, which is a special scholarship that set aside money for people that are out of work or don't have travel. And I have known Dan Cohn, and I am very honored to receive that as part of being part of the community and what they have set aside for people that weren't able to come otherwise. And what I was wanting to get out of it was really just to be here for the community, to meet more people, to inspire and hopefully get more people involved. I mean, they're already here at the conference, and being able to come as someone who's been a long-time attendee to KubeCon. I think I've come to all but one North America KubeCon, so I've been coming for a very long time, and I know a lot of people, and I would love making connections for people and helping them understand just what this entire space is about.
As a student right now, I'm extremely interested in distributed systems and networking, and I also have always wanted to learn more about the open source community. And so I thought this would be a great way. It's an event in Chicago. It's only a 2-hour drive for me. Thought this would be a great way to learn a bit more about what's going on in the community.
For me, I'm a backend engineer too at Openly at the moment. My intention when I came to KubeCon was to make connections with the open source contributors so that I can get associated with some of these folks. from the open source community and get to introduce myself, get to know them, and then be able to contribute back to the community now.
This is my very first conference that I've ever attended, so I was really hoping to come and learn more about what goes on in this industry, learn about Kubernetes, and really I'm just here to learn in general.
Community. I like the fact that we come to this conference every year and get to establish relationships and build a better ecosystem for not just the projects that exist, but those that are coming into the CNCF.
Well, what I hope to get out of this conference was to get involved in the community, experience the people, the energy, just the vibes, and just take all of that and bring it back to work with me, to motivate my work. And, sometimes you kind of get lost at the tunnel, and you just need a new perspective, a new vibe, something new to upgrade what you do, maybe learn some new tech. And so that I was really excited to be here and be a part of that. All of us are really just so passionate about this tech space, and it's been nice to be all in the same place at the same time and just sharing all of it.
So, being the co-chair, I had to ask myself that question every day, and it was actually for me less about what can I get out of it, and it was more about what can I do to make sure that everyone gets something out of it, that they have an excellent time here, and a wide variety of experiences. So the thing that I got out of it was more, I actually really enjoyed, I got a lot of pleasure out of seeing the execution of that and seeing how it all came together, and that's made me really happy.
I didn't really have any expectations, but my expectations have been exceeded. It's my first time here, ever. First time I've ever been to a tech conference, so after watching this keynote, I've been so overwhelmed with everything. I'm so excited. It's been an amazing experience.
I think this is my fourth in-person KubeCon. I'm super grateful that I've been given the chance to attend each and every KubeCon after COVID. And I just feel that every time there's something or the other to learn. I guess when my first ever KubeCon, my single focus was to get to meet new folks and just get to be able to start contributing to the CNCF projects. But since then, I think my focus has changed a bit because now I've been exposed to be able to contribute. I've been regularly attending the SIG meet and greets, the Contrib Fests, the Kubernetes Contributor Summit, and all of these experiences have just shown that the entire Kubernetes community is very inclusive, and I guess one of the most inclusive. And I just feel that I personally want to make the entire CNCF landscape and the entire Kubernetes community more inclusive in my own local communities, because I feel that English as a language is widely spoken, but there is still a lot of scope for introducing concepts like Kubernetes to folks who might not come from a traditional English language background. So I've been doing a lot of work helping with documenting the Kubernetes documentation in Hindi, and also just teaching concepts related to Hindi. So I personally am just looking out to connect with more folks and expand on this inclusive content, that we can have more and more people from non-traditional backgrounds join and contribute to Kubernetes.
What big trends are you seeing at the conference?
The big ones are like AI and Kubernetes. I don't really understand much of either, but that's what I keep hearing over and over again. And a lot of security stuff too, I would say. A lot of these booths, so that's what I keep seeing over and over again.
So surprisingly, I'm seeing a couple trends that are really awesome. One of those being sustainability in Kubernetes, which I wasn't really expecting and not something that I normally think about. But it's given me some exposure to it and makes me want to Google more about it, as well as security. Kubernetes has grown a lot of trend lately. So the more that tech evolves, the more security is needed. So those are two really big things that I've been seeing.
It's AI. It is AI, as we all know. And it's almost coming cliche to say at this point, but it is still the thing. It has gained a lot of gas and speed. There's also GitHub Copilot, GitHub University at the same time, and how they're basically an AI company. And that's the trend, for good or for bad.
AI is used in marketing, but I'm going to skip that one because I have thoughts. Moving on, I think maintainability around projects is particularly noticeable this time year around. And to name drop projects, etcd, love you guys, things are picking back up, and there's heaps of projects that are receiving more maintainership, which is super important and valuable to see, and we all benefit from it. So go contribute to etcd.
It's quite a few in a lot of domains. Still looking forward to some LLM companies being showcased at like some of the sponsors, maybe next year. But I saw CNC have launched their the LLM starter pack, so I'm looking forward to playing around with that after I'm back home. So that's one, but I'm also seeing a lot of companies focused on helping developers, so the dev side of DevOps. The whole license change conversation that has been happening, and how folks are trying to make it easy because we all know Kubernetes is complex, right? But the real question is now, what are you doing about it? So many cloud providers, they're doing their own thing, like managed Kubernetes, and Google does it. They have their own service, like okay, serverless is there, and it all depends on like what kind of use case you have. But onboarding to Kubernetes, it's always like, take KubeCon for example. I meet so many people, and I'm like, have you heard of Kubernetes? Like, yeah. Are you using it? No, it's complex. So I don't know where to start, and it's like resources in terms of time and budget or whatever it might be to train their staff or whatever. So I'm seeing a lot of companies that are like helping developers who want to work with. And then there's a platform engineering thing which we can like talk about on and on. There's a lot of companies around platform engineering, and yeah, it's been really fun.
One of the biggest trends I would say I'm seeing is cloud native computing is following the trends of rest of technology and the industry, and there's been a lot of domains that have switched from .io to .ai. And a lot of pivots into spaces that are maybe don't make sense, but also might try to show some value in new ways and helping people in more interesting ways than what we were seeing in the past with standard automation and tooling.
There are a few things I've been seeing across like a lot of companies. I think in general, like the systems and AI integration across like a lot of companies is pretty cool. Like, for example, like Azure was talking about how running OpenAI deployments on AKS. Another thing I've been seeing is, like a lot of companies using eBPF, which is like making runtime adjustments to Linux kernel code. I was also seeing this one company, extremely interesting, just get creative with, making optimizations and stuff. Like one company here was essentially created their own operating system in C because there's a lot of bloatware that comes with running an entire desktop enabled Ubuntu container, Linux container in Docker when there's a lot of things you don't really need to account for.
There are some big trends, I must say, because there's so much things that are going on at KubeCon. One joke that I was sharing with people is KubeCon is not a conference, it's a festival. There's so much things going on at one particular moment that you cannot be everywhere at once, unfortunately. That's because we are humans. And let's see, so according to me, the two big trends that I've seen is related to WebAssembly. And the other thing that I'm seeing is related to the cross-plane thing. So yeah, these are the two big trends that I came across personally.
You want to say a little bit about what WebAssembly and cross-plane are?
Yeah, sure. WebAssembly is a way that lets you run any language on any runtime. So let's just say you want to write your code in Python and you want to run it in the Golang runtime. WebAssembly is there in the middle to help you facilitate that. And cross-plane is, from what I understood from my not too much of knowledge, cross-plane is in between data plane and the control plane. So it's trying to capture the functionalities of both at once. It's from what I understand. Hey, if you're listening this and if I said anything wrong, don't hold it against me, please. I'm still taking my baby steps in the community.
Well, again, being this is my first conference, I don't really have a lot to compare it to, but I'm seeing that Kubernetes is really growing. I'm seeing a lot of it in my work. I'm starting to use documentation and containers, so I'm expecting to see more of that in the future.
The trends I'm seeing around the projects that exist are adoption. I like to see the fact that AI is getting a big push, security is being actually prioritized. I see a lot of things that are in incubating stage, graduating. I'm watching a lot of people adopt things that are actually making products better for the community as a whole, and I love to see where that's going in the future.
The biggest trend, I would say, is the Gen AI. So we're just seeing a lot of that. It's really spreading really everywhere right now. So we have a lot of work to coordinate all of that, but it's also a very exciting space to be in. So it's a way that our lives could be improved. We can become more efficient through the use of AI. We're just really discovering different ways that can be applied. We're getting closer to the time when we're seeing some of the outcomes. So I think it's a great trend to be seeing. And of course, the cloud component of it as well. We're using and leveraging the cloud more and more. That would probably be one of the main things I'm bringing back is the cloud optimization component. It's just really an exciting time to be in the tech world.
There are several trends that I would definitely like to point out. So the first one is security continues to be a major theme. That is right in my wheelhouse. But even if it wasn't, the fact still remains. I also see a lot of things coming around with eBPF. It continues to gain more traction. We had a significant increase in artificial intelligence that people are asking questions around, especially generative AI and LLMs. We even saw some generated AI slides in a previous talk. Hint, hint, it's mine. But we're also seeing, one of the ones that really surprised me was we always had people talking about environmental sustainability, but it was always like a afterthought, and now we have, not just here, but throughout the world, it's becoming more central, it's becoming a major theme. In fact, one example is, I was talking with a person and asking him, hey, are you going to come over to KubeCon North America? And he was in Amsterdam before, based in Europe. And he said, no, my company is, I've already exhausted my carbon credit allotment coming out. So it wasn't a financial limit, it was actually an environmental limit instead. So that tells me the companies are starting to take it much more seriously, and they're trying to think about how to address their usage. And it also gives a very interesting question, because how does KubeCon evolve in order to live in this new environment that's coming forward?
Well, I'm hoping that accessibility will continue, not just be a trend, but I prefer that they continue to have accessibility for this conference that becomes a foundational part. I'm hoping that everyone will see that they can be a leader in accessibility for conferences and see what that looks like, and other people can provide accommodations, accessibility. I mean, they've been amazing. We gave them a few weeks and they've just done it. It's been amazing.
As I mentioned, that I have been for the past 1.5 years contributing to WebAssembly, and I'm actually giving a talk at KubeCon this year for the WebAssembly working group, which is going to be under the CNCF tag runtime. And the entire idea for this working group is to help more and more CNCF projects basically understand that how they can incorporate WebAssembly. A lot of work, especially in Kubernetes, has been able to run WebAssembly workloads within Kubernetes itself, and also integrating WebAssembly support in the Kubernetes scheduler. So what we're seeing, one of the biggest trends is a lot of companies are actually adopting WebAssembly now. Projects like eBPF, then you look at a lot of the WebAssembly runtimes, a lot of like serverless AI is going around at the KubeCon, and a lot of like Gen AI. But a lot of stuff is also related to how you can efficiently run AI on edge. And WebAssembly proves to be a very good way of being able to run AI, because you know that you want small compute and you want quick inference, and WebAssembly does provide you that. But of course, apart from that, a lot of startups are adopting Gen AI. So that also means that a lot of companies that traditionally did not have MLOps architecture, they are now adopting MLOps pipelines, because we know that as compared to standard DevOps practices, you need like specialized hardware like GPUs. How you can do like model splitting or data splitting to basically make GPU efficiency more and run these really huge large language models efficiently, whether it's on the edge or in general day-to-day compute. I think like those are definitely the biggest trends that we are seeing at KubeCon.
What is your favorite thing you've learned so far?
My favorite thing so far is knowing that everyone's sharing the experience I'm having now, where everyone has that same feeling of anxiety and feeling like they don't belong. Carly explained it to me very well. She said that it's something called imposter syndrome. Thank you. Yeah, so it is comforting knowing that we all kind of suffer together in a weird way at one point of our lives, but it does help out a lot, and it gets rid of a lot of the anxiety, and you do feel like you belong eventually.
The sustainability has been something that's been really awesome to learn about. Definitely something I've never really thought of. I'm very, very new to the Kubernetes community, so very cool to see things like that.
Favorite thing I've learned so far. Ooh, that's a good one. If I had to pick one thing, right, it is some of the work that's being done as far as instructional wise. There's been a lot of work to hype people up being, on the cloud and on Kubernetes and things like that, but it's kind of very geared as like, oh, this is how you do Kubernetes, right? But what I'm seeing is a lot more folks who are taking the time to like do some introspection and do some engagement with the users to figure out exactly how they need to be engaged, right? Because it was kind of a one-size-fits-all. So many people are using Kubernetes now in so many different ways. They're coming from so many different backgrounds. And so we can't approach them all the exact same way when we teach them these things. So seeing some of the things that I've seen companies doing to get the data from the user and to find out how they need to be taught is really exciting to me. So I think we're going to see a good jump in skill of the practitioner over time here shortly.
Well, when I got here, Gateway API has graduated to V1, and so I really like having had learned that. So also those folks are really good. I enjoyed learning about that.
WASM's new thing, it's like WASM has been picking up pace. It's a Fermion booth. I was talking to the founders there. They're doing some cool stuff with WASM and GPUs, with the whole sustainability thing that is going on right now. So the whole carbon neutral mission that I'm sure many companies have, like including Google. So yeah, interested to see where the WASM ecosystem is going to head. It's not obviously as big as the cloud native ecosystem right now, but looks pretty promising. I think it's always nice to embrace new technology. So I'm really excited about what's happening in WASM. And Solomon Hykes is here, so a Docker person, founded Docker. I was at the Dagger booth. I spoke to him about making CI/CD better. So they're doing some stuff with CI/CD, making it faster, and it's also nice to see a lot of innovative companies there. Like they're just starting. I went to this one booth. Not sure if I can name them, but like the company has 3 people. That's it. And they're doing something with making Docker images faster or something like that. So it's always nice to see new companies and also visionaries. Like Kelsey has been walking around. He was at the Kaslin booth, book signing, and I got my book boy, Mauricio, shout out to Salaboy. Liz Rice, she's been signing books. But yeah, it's been good KubeCon, yeah.
One of my favorite things I've learned is there's still so many new people and so much stuff to do still that there's still a lot of opportunity. This isn't Kubernetes has been around for 10 years and we're done with it. Everyone's growing with it still. Not everyone, but there's a lot of people in day 2 trends where they have to learn how to scale things, how to upgrade things, how to keep things sustainable long term. And there's also a lot of talks around sustainability and cost optimization and the other pieces of it that we weren't talking about 5 or 6 years ago because we were just trying to get it to run. And now it's much more around how do we make this sustainable for the next generation and help make it easier for new people to come in and not only contribute and become maintainers, but to run these things as systems evolve.
I think going back to that systems and AI integration, how important optimization is when running these heavy workloads. For example, a lot of the interactions I've had with AI, through ChatGPT or something, maybe looking at the OpenAI API, playing around with that, looking at IBM's Watson, but at a deeper level, all the things that you need to account for in terms of putting these things up to scale and not wasting resources.
A few things. Let's do one technical and one philosophical. One philosophical thing that I learned from the community in the last couple of days is go for what you actually love to do. I mean, it's a very cliche advice at this point because everyone says it, but I can really see it around me that people are actually doing what they love to do, and that's why we see so much awesome results around us. There are folks who are focused on Kubernetes itself, and then there are people who are working on WebAssembly, there are people who are working on other things, but it shows when you talk to people that they really are working on things that they really love to do. So that was one philosophical thing I learned. Again, that was an iterative thing for me, and iteration is not bad at times. The other one technical thing that I'm taking away from here is probably about WebAssembly. What about specific in WebAssembly would be WebAssembly is seems to me personally the future. There's so many big advocates of WebAssembly in KubeCon this year. So one technical thing that I learned is in regards to WebAssembly itself, if you have 2 different binaries, if your one binary is in Python and the other binary is in Go, they can still communicate with each other in using WebAssembly. So that was really impressive and really cool. I think the guys at Fermion are doing this with, so they also call that control panel or control plane, I don't remember, but that was a good technical thing I learned.
Oh, wow. Everything, really just everything. It's been overwhelming, but it's been a lot of fun. It's been a fantastic experience. This has been such a wonderful community. They've been so supportive and friendly and welcoming, very inclusive. So I've just been so built up by all of that.
What I've learned so far is the projects in the CNCF, the landscape around how that's been developing to become better things, and the Kubernetes project as a whole, how they're breaking it up in structures to where it's accessible to more people. My
favorite thing that I've learned, I would say I have learned who my collaborators are, different members of the deaf and hard of hearing work group. We've learned about their journeys in the tech space. We've heard their stories. It's just been really amazing to see. We've also had an opportunity to learn about the different companies, about Buoyant, and they're working on the Linger D. They're contributing some of their time. Catherine, who works there, Catherine Pagnini, gave us some of her time to assist with setting up this deaf and hard of hearing work group. And it's just been really great to work with them. We're just so grateful for the time that she's donated to help making our deaf and hard of hearing work group possible. I've been learning how Kubernetes projects are incubated and then graduated, and just how the community contributors, they're brilliant. It's just mind-blowing to see what everyone is contributing.
It's not really learning, but I enjoy meeting new people. So I've learned a lot of new names. I've learned a lot of what people are doing, where people have moved towards. But for me personally, to really dive into the kind of question you're trying to ask, my main thing is I always look for what are the trends, what are the strategy. I even did this before I was co-chair of KubeCon, and I want to know how things are progressing forward, because us working in the community, it becomes vital for the health of the community for us to be able to maybe not perfectly predict it, but we do have to be in tune with that. And that's something that I hope to continue to try to provide guidance with others or provide influence, and of course listen as well. It's important. You can't do that effectively if you're not listening to others.
I've learned so much. I love the community feel. Everyone that I've met and networked with, talked with, has been so supportive. It's been so great. Everyone has been so open. They want to learn. Just this feeling of community has been amazing. I just feel like other places or other meetings and conferences have a different feel than this. I feel like home. Everyone you meet really wants to know you. They're genuine. They want to get to know you better and keep the real connection. It's not just like a surface, oh, hello, and then that's it.
I think the best thing I really loved was Priyanka's, demo. I saw that, at one point in time there is a small, issue with the database connectivity, but it went pretty well. But we are just seeing how quickly people are adopting to new technologies at KubeCon. One of the previous podcasts we were talking about sustainability. I worked very closely with Divya Mohan from Rancher and Sayam from Sivo. They basically ran this entire sustainability week in CNCF India, and I was able to contribute to that. But I think just becoming more environmentally aware and understanding that how Kubernetes as an ecosystem is growing and how new and more CNCF projects can get better at being able to incubate. Because I know that earlier it is not the most streamlined process, but now we are really seeing that for new projects to come into the CNCF landscape, there's a very clearly defined path that is being followed from, getting their incubation to sandboxing and of course to graduation. So as we have more and more projects get into that field, I think it will be easier for newer projects to also capture that. And especially I foresee that also in the WebAssembly space, as we'll see more and more WebAssembly adoption in Kubernetes and in CNCF. So a lot of open source projects related to WebAssembly might come into the CNCF landscape, and hopefully it becomes easier for them to also go through this entire incubation and graduation process.
What would you like to see at future KubeCons?
Honestly, I would like to see maybe a booth that's strictly for the new people, you know what I mean? Where they have a dumbed down version of everything. That would be amazing, because there's some terms that I came in, I'm what? So something like that would be great, where you could just go there and kind of learn some of the verbiage and like what it means, so you can go to other booths and understand what other people are actually saying. So I think that would be great. Maybe a little gaming area too, or like a nap area, that'd be great.
All of the speakers have been incredible. I would like to see some more beginner courses, more selections of that, more starter courses to really, warm my feet up into it and to like break into the big ones.
I would like to see the separation of co-located events and Contributor Summit again, because I like the other things as well, but I also like being a part of the Kubernetes community, so it makes it a little bit more challenging, though I did thoroughly enjoy the Kubernetes Contributor Summit, as they always are so lovely, so yes, see me.
One thing I'd like to see is that KubeCon so when I entered the venue, it's like an airport. It's so big, and the sponsor showcase in itself is huge. I've definitely lost weight, walking around, and I've got my steps in and everything, which is a good thing. But the thing is that when the CNCF releases their after KubeCon report, so for example, last year it was like 65% were first-time attendees. So for a first-time attendee, it's overwhelming, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think one thing CNCF can do is maybe like organize a guided tour or something. That'd be nice. If not for everyone, then at least for students. So many students here. I saw like plenty. So I think a guided tour would be fun, like Disney or something, because it is big enough for a guided tour. So it can include like sessions and networking events, and then booth crawl and just tie it in together, and like a little guided tour. And we had Sig Boba yesterday. It was sponsored by CNCF, non-alcoholic after party. So that was really fun. Yeah, thanks CNCF for supporting that.
I would love to see new faces being in the maintainer tracks and being part of the chairs and stepping up in ways and being able to take ownership of a lot of the things that people like myself have been around. And it's not that we're doing all the work, it's that it's inspiring to see new people take it and make it their own. And I really like to see people take it in new directions and make their goals and realities out of it.
I think like for me, I'm a beginner within like the open source community. This is my first KubeCon. I think that I'd like to see more beginner friendly stuff. I think a lot of this is geared towards like industry professionals, even though like there is like a section for academics or like for like, like students, undergrad students. So just be personally like, wanting to learn more from like ground up type stuff. But yeah.
I would love to see more open source projects giving the contribution talks. Like we had a few this year. I'm not sure if we used to have it previous year as well. This is my first KubeCon, but that is something I would love to see more of. More sessions of contrib, as they put it in that category. Contribution, the contributors getting into the room with the guys who want to contribute or who have been contributing. They get to meet them, they get to see them. So yeah, that is more of what I personally would love to see. But again, because I'm a back engineer too, I mean, that answer could be different for different person when you talk to different people around here.
I would like to see more inclusivity, more accessibility, more interpreting, and also better captioning during some of these sessions. Just more efforts to just increase the accessibility and inclusivity.
I would like to see more representation of maintainers being more diversified, and hopefully new leaders where those diversified ideas can naturalize into a position to broaden the community outside of its original intention and allow more adoption for underrepresented minorities and also people who have challenges contributing to open source.
Well, right now, I don't think I have anything to add because this has just been just a phenomenal experience. I didn't notice any issues where I feel like anything needed to be added. Other than the accessibility and the accommodations, I mean, everything has been nothing short of amazing.
Amazingly, no one has said better food yet.
Well, I mean, my perspective is that this is a community event and it's a community-funded event, so you can't be picky about some of those things. You can't go overboard with the food either. So, right?
Wonderful.
I'll take it. I would rather be here interacting with the community, so I'm good.
I'm probably the best person to ask this question. Wow. Unless you find Casper. He might be better to ask because he'll be in the know. My hope is that in the future, one of the things that really, it doesn't necessarily scare me, but it's because I think the community will rise through this. But there's a question as to what happens when KubeCon, because KubeCon Cloud Native Con for the whole name, right? And there's a moment when Kubernetes will eventually reach a peak in development, and then it'll transition to more maintenance over time. Every project goes through this at some point in its life cycle. And the question then becomes, how do we continue to grow the community, and how do we continue to get that sustainability, community sustainability specifically? And part of that is we have new people to come in. How do we guide those newcomers into new projects or projects that they're interested in? And that's where our broader ecosystem becomes even more important, because that's how we maintain the total community that we're doing here. So how do we get people to become first-time contributors, that they come here? I would love to get people where it's their first time coming to a KubeCon and getting their first commit into any project. Like, I would love to see that kind of dynamic start to occur. It's something I'm going to recommend to my colleagues, the future co-chairs who are going to do the next one and the one after that, with the hope that we can continue to get that collaboration.
Keep it how it is. Keep this conference. It's been, like I said, it's foundational. How it's set, like, just keep doing it the same, the next one and the next one and the next one, just to keep going. This longevity is amazing.
So I think one thing that I have really loved is how we can make KubeCon more inclusive for beginners. So as I mentioned that earlier, and as part of my podcast, I initially started off by just attending a lot of these SIGs meet and greets, because that gave me exposure to what SIGs are and how, you don't have to be scared to reach out to folks within SIGs. But at the same time, I got my first ever contributions to a number of different projects by attending the Contrib Fest. I literally spent from early morning in the day to evenings just contributing to projects, and I had so much fun. Because we know that when you're working remotely, it's a lot harder to reach out to maintainers and get like one-to-one support, because it's not physically possible for maintainer to give time. But when you're sitting in front of the maintainer and they are helping you make your first ever pull request, I feel that that's a good thing. So just seeing more of these kind of initiatives, so that contributors who are not just looking to contribute to the docs, but also perhaps to the major projects, perhaps to the Kubernetes project itself. Just having more initiatives towards first steps, taking baby steps towards making your first contribution will go a long way, definitely. So that's one thing that I'm really looking out for.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you very much, Kaslin, for that. That was cool.
I always like doing the interviews. I learned so much from it, because every time, I think I mentioned this the first time that we did this style of episode, every time I come back from an event, everyone's like, all right, tell me all about the event. What were the trends? Like, what were the big things? And I'm always like, I only have my own subjective perspective.
Yeah.
But I love doing these interviews because I get a lot more perspectives, and you can see how they vary.
Exactly. I think in this style of interviews, by far the WasmCon one was the most interesting, because the technology attracts people from different fields.
It was very varied, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. KubeCon and Cloud Native Con are probably, like, in terms of interest, is quite homogeneous compared to WasmCon. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah. I even, usually for these interviews, I just go out in the hallway and find random people, because I really want to get folks that are not just folks that I know. This time, we got a variety as well, I think. So
nice.
There is variety, but also homogeneity.
Yeah.
So, fair point.
I guess we start with the elephant out of the room. There was a picture on Twitter of you doing interviews with the deaf and hard of hearing community.
I'm so excited about those.
How did that go? How did that happen, actually?
Yeah. So after the keynotes on the last day, I had already decided, maybe during the keynotes that day, or maybe it was the night before. I don't know. KubeCon is a blur. Yeah. But at some point, I had realized, like, the deaf and hard of hearing working group folks had already been on stage in the keynotes. And also, one of the folks did a lightning talk. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time that I've ever been to a talk that was given in sign language and then had to be interpreted into English. And I was just so excited about all of this stuff that was going on with them at the event. And at some point, I realized I could interview them, because they've been walking around with interpreters. And so I could have someone help us out, and we could get audio of their interviews. which has made me think about all sorts of things with the podcast. But anyway.
Yeah.
So it occurred to me this was a possibility. And then at the end of the keynotes on the last day, they were kind of hanging out as folks were clearing out. And so I went up to them because they had an interpreter right there. They had 2 interpreters, which was nice since they just did the whole interpretation of the keynotes, which, by the way, was really important that day because the captions actually cut out at one point during the keynotes because the audio feed for the captioner cut out.
Oh, that's bad.
And there was like a note that just popped up on stage saying, the captioner lost audio connection. No more captions for you.
Oh, that's bad.
I was like, wow, really glad that we had those interpreters there.
Yeah.
So they were hanging out on the last day, and it had occurred to me that it was a good idea. And so I asked them, and they were up for it.
Nice. So, and just to be clear, the audio that we hear in the interview is the interpreter, but there was 2 or 3 people, right, in the interview itself?
Yes, there were 3 people, and there were 2 interpreters actually that did it, but they were both women. And the folks that we interviewed was 2 men and 1 woman.
Okay.
So that's another like limitation of trying to translate from sign language into English is you don't get to hear their actual voices, but at least we hear their voices in some respect.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. The picture that was going around on Twitter was taken by Aurélie, because I think Aurélie saw the whole interview and then she took a picture and then it was like, like copied around with a bunch of people.
Yeah, they actually recorded video of those interviews so that for the deaf and hard of hearing folks, they can watch the video so that they can also see the signing and get a lot more context out of it than we are able to get here through the English interpretation. Because there was so much energy and like emotion in their signing that doesn't quite come across in the interpretation. So Abdel and I, we have been talking about doing video as part of this podcast, and hopefully we can grab those videos and maybe start a YouTube channel. So look out for that in the future, hopefully.
I think, this is not a promise, but I think I'll bring my camera gear to KubeCon EU and we'll try to do some videos there and we'll see how it goes, right?
Which is right around the corner.
Yeah, I like I forgot, it's a Cube FM by Bart, right? Because he does videos.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Bart,
I think it's Bart, yeah.
Bart, birthmark Bart on Twitter.
I knew he does videos, but most of what I saw on social media was just like him interviewing people virtually. But the first one that popped up was in the CNCF Ambassadors channel where he interviewed Katie, who is like running the Ambassador program.
Oh, yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was going around with camera equipment at KubeCon North America. Also, fun fact, Bart did a rap once that I was featured in.
Oh, yes. Yes, we have to have a link to that.
Have to grab the link for that for the show notes.
Yes, that was really cool. Cool. Yeah, there was quite a lot of interesting things. Obviously, the trends are, as one would expect, AI, ML, WASM, platform engineering.
There was at least 1 or 2 interviews where when I showed folks the question, I show folks these questions before I ask them so they have a chance to decide if they're okay with this before we do it. And at least 1 or 2 of the folks was like, I really would like to say something other than AI, but I don't think I can.
Yeah. And this is another reason why I think if you made it so far to the podcast, you should go and listen to the keynote by Tim Hawkin, because he specifically talks about this. And it's only 15 minutes, it's not too long. And then he did a bunch of interviews with a bunch of like very popular tech publications. And of course, his wisdom is very important. So
also, I should have mentioned it while we were talking about the deaf and hard of hearing group folks, but I also recorded a little tidbit by one of the folks who was hanging out with the deaf and hard of hearing folks. He's not deaf or hard of hearing, but he can do sign language, speak sign language. And so he was hanging out with them a lot. And he had some really fascinating insight about that community and their experience with conferences and how difficult it is for them to be a part of the community without proper accessibility. Anyway, it's a really fantastic quote. We'll play that at the end of this little chatter segment. So if you stick around to the very end, you'll get to hear that. And it's really, really cool.
Awesome. Of course, very happy to see that SIG Boba is going strong.
Yes. If you all heard our KubeCon North America episode last year, 2022, someone mentioned the idea of SIG Boba in an interview. That was Lee Capilli. He and Kunal have been running that for the last couple of KubeCons. It's really awesome.
Yeah, that was, I'm very happy to see. We have to start new SIG. If we have to continue the tradition of starting new things in this podcast.
Or continue the tradition of following what's going on with SIG Boba.
Yeah. And then there was one thing that I found really interesting. So I forgot the name of the person, But somebody was saying that this was their first KubeCon or maybe even their first conference, if I'm not mistaken. And they found it, obviously it's overwhelming. KubeCon is huge. And the proposal, which if you are from the CNCF and listening to this, we would like to work with you on this, would be a newbie booth, right?
Yes, I'm so excited about that proposal. We really need to talk with the CNCF folks about that. We can hit a few different channels with that between our connections.
Yeah.
But I would love to see that.
So the idea would be that it would be a booth with a bunch of people that will help newcomers or new first-timers, which, as we heard, is like, it's always more than 50%, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like make sense out of all these terminologies, all these like keywords they hear, all this stuff, right?
Yeah. And explain like I'm 5 station or a ask me your dumb question station.
Yeah.
I think that would be so fantastic. And I think Kunal in his interview also suggested doing tours.
Oh, yeah.
For new folks. I think that would be really cool too, offering an opportunity to like register for a tour and maybe having the CNCF ambassadors lead tours through the convention center before the event actually starts, maybe on like day 0, and walk through and go like, here's the showcase, here's what you can do here, and here are the main areas for the breakouts. And we could probably even find out like which tracks are in which areas and like tell people all sorts of stuff about how the event works, because it can be really confusing.
Yeah, and it's 8,000 people. Amsterdam was 10,000 people, and moving between breakout sessions was like so much walking, right?
Also, I think this is the first time that EU was bigger than NA in person.
Yes. Yeah.
Amsterdam.
Yeah, Amsterdam was 10K.
Valencia was close last year.
Correct.
2022 was close. And this year, EU overtook NA in terms of in-person attendance.
Yeah. As you said, it would be interesting or cool to help people who's it's first time coming to the conference, like kind of navigate the space and figure out where to go if they need to find stuff, right?
Yeah, so CNCF, free ideas for you.
Yes, please. By the way, you don't have to listen. We're going to follow up on Slack. We're going to hit a bunch of people.
Yeah, but also they should listen to
they should listen as well, of course.
Because there's lots of other really cool feedback.
Yeah. I think one of them was like, you did all the interviews and then toward the end, you asked somebody like, I'm surprised no one talked about the food.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's like something that people complain about a lot in KubeCon.
Yeah, last time I did these interviews, at least in Detroit, I think in NA, there were at least several that said the food. I think even in U, a couple of folks said the food. And by the way, the food at this was terrible. It was not good.
Just putting this out there.
Yeah, but nobody mentioned it this time. They all had other things they wanted to talk about, which is good and maybe bad.
Yeah, we'll see.
I think it's good.
I'm very curious about how the food will look like in Paris.
Yeah.
The capital of the gastronomy.
There have been years it's been good.
Yes. We'll see. We'll see about that.
It's too big these days.
Feeding into 2,000 people is not easy. Let's just put it this way, right? It's like it's
yeah,
a lot
it's just
of work.
sandwiches these days.
Exactly. Well, that was pretty cool. Do you have anything else, like something that some of your favorite moments, something you want to mention?
I'm really excited, of course, that we got to interview the deaf and hard of hearing folks. I hope that we get that video version of the podcast spun up so that it's more accessible for folks, for technologists who are deaf and hard of hearing. I'm really glad that we got to have their quote unquote voices on the podcast this time. And like you said, the newbie feedback, I'm really excited about too. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much, Kaslin.
Yeah. We'll see you all next time.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and play that quote.
As somebody who's not deaf, but sort of deaf adjacent, I grew up with deaf friends. One of the things that's been really encouraging for me is to see the folks here and all the support and the accessibility. I've been going to conferences for over 10 years now in my role as a developer relations advocate, evangelist, whatever. And I always put on Instagram or LinkedIn a message in sign language that if you want to speak sign language and that's your main mode of communication, come find me in booth, whatever. And nobody has ever come because it hasn't been accessible. And this event, for a lot of the folks that you heard from, this is their first conference ever because they can. And that's been really encouraging and really amazing to see. And as someone who's been, again, sort of adjacent to the deaf community, to see that they're able to participate and share their opinions has been wonderful for me. No problem.
That brings us to the end of another episode. If you enjoyed the show, please help us spread the word and tell a friend. If you have any feedback for us, you can find us on social media at KubernetesPod on X or reach us by email at kubernetespodcast@google.com. You can also check out our website at kubernetespodcast.com, where you will find transcripts and show notes and links to subscribe. Please consider rating us in your podcast player so we can help more people find and enjoy the show. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.